our Hangouts and trying to get the video conferencing going. So now we're going to get into the data. So we're looking at the accountability data from 2014 for the Cunningham Elementary School. And I want to speak to the first bar at the top. I always forget that I don't have the luxury of using a pointer because I want to make sure I'm always facing you. But we are in the highest performing percentile, 81st percentile, but we also want to look at the bars that we didn't make the 75%, which are the two, high needs and students with disabilities, which, again, I planned this out so we use the pointers. But we know where the work is. We know that students with high needs, students in the high needs subgroup and students with disabilities are where we need to make sure they're making growth, making progress from year to year annually on state assessments. We are going to spend the majority of this presentation speaking to our plans to make sure that that's taking place. And we're also going to speak to how using data and internal assessments is helping us sort of make sure that they're making progress during the year so that on the state assessment, which this year will be PARCC and in-class for science, but on the state assessments we have a nice understanding or better understanding of sort of expecting student not only better performance, but better progress and growth. Behind me is a pie graph of the overall Cunningham School. We had 69 students in 69% of students in ELA in the advanced and proficient category. We had 31% in needs improvements and warning. We had 79% of students in the advanced and proficient category for math and 21% in needs improvement and warning. So obviously not only is there a discrepancy between the ELA and the math that we definitely need to adjust, we want to make sure that we're highlighting the needs improvement and warning and making sure that the students that are in that category have been identified and that we're putting things in place, whether it's things we're doing in the school structurally with the schedule or whether it's things we're doing beyond the school day to make sure that they have access to different opportunities to make growth and progress, not only on state assessments, but during the year. So, and then the next few slides are going to break it down by grade level. So in third grade, we had 72% of students in advanced and proficient in ELA. And if you look at the math, one of the big highlights is you can see over half of our students in math were actually in the advanced category. So something that's really encouraging as we look at our current fourth grade and moving up. This is also our smallest class. So we only had 47 students actually take the MCAS last year. I think that number has actually decreased this year, with, but we have a very small fourth grade class this year, but we're very encouraged by sort of their initial first state tests. And we want to make sure that we continue this growth with this current fourth grade class. And you'll see why I'm emphasizing fourth grade with the next slide. So as you can see, our needs improvement and warning increased in fourth grade significantly, not only just by looking at the pie graph, but from the previous year, from 2013, we saw a dip in performance in fourth grade. And again, one of our school improvement goals as a result is specifically speaking to what we're doing with fourth grade, what we're doing around instruction in fourth grade, and particularly what we're doing in writing that is unique to fourth grade this year to address sort of the practices and sort of the performance from last year. So we're very aware this is something that was intentionally shared with staff on the very first day. This is something that's been intentional every single week, which I'll get into a little later. And this is sort of our number one goal this year, because we don't want to see any dips ever, but we definitely don't want to see such a high percentage of students falling into the needs improvement category. For our fifth grade data, we have 82% of students in proficient and advanced, and we are still looking at 19% of students in our needs improvement and warning category. And we want to, although typically we do see a jump in fifth grade data, and we're expecting the same or even better this year, we do want to highlight that in fifth grade, they've had the test already twice, and we need to make sure that the number in needs improvement and warning is is minimal at best because they've already experienced the test twice, and we have already put things in place for them to sort of make growth and progress, and we want to make sure now that we're looking at instructional practices that will be addressed now, I know, in science and in ELA with the new Calkins units, and in math, we're really making sure that we have extended day programs that focus specifically on areas that everyday math may not necessarily address to make sure that students are making progress in that area. Everyday math is a great curriculum and a great program, but sometimes that we need to sort of not only extended time, but a different approach to making sure that students are learning specific content. And science. In science, we had a 60% in pass and advanced and proficient, but we had 40% students in needs improvement and warning. This is another one of our improvement goals. This is our number 4 goal. This year, we're doing a lot of work in science. Although it's only taken in 5th grade, this is a goal of the whole school because their students are tested on standards from 1st grade to 5th grade. So it's going to be a complete effort to make sure that when we implement these new curriculum units, we're doing it with fidelity and we're tracking growth like we would do in ELA in math. So assessments in science is relatively new this year. The curriculum is relatively new on top of the ELA and the workshop that we already placed on teachers. So the teachers have been very resilient in learning all the different new content, new curriculum, and working with the instructors that has come from the companies that we will also speak to, and has really made a difference in not only their approach in the classroom, but with the data. And again, everything I'm speaking to when I say effective is based on the data and from the internal assessments that we're using this year in Cunningham School. As you can see from one of in the picture there, I spoke briefly on the science PD that was 4th graders, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers went through this year, and I'm going to have Erin speak specifically to how that has impacted her in the classroom based on what she did there and then what she were able to instruct in the classroom.
I found these FOSS trainings to be especially helpful because the FOSS instructor provided us with creative ways to help students reach their learning objectives with a more discovery-based approach. She also emphasized science notebooking and taught us how to implement that in the classroom, which has really helped the students share their thinking with each other and with us, which in turn helps me assess their understanding of the investigations.
These are the generalized data observations. The percent of students that are advanced and proficient in grades 3 and 5, I'm sorry, I need my glasses, and 5 ELA remains steady. The percent of students advanced and proficient has declined in grade 4 English Language Arts. Grade 3 math has shown a steady increase since 2012. Grade 5 math and science have shown a slight decrease.
So along with the performance, we also looked at their growth and noticed that some students in the proficient range showed low growth, and some students in the needs improvement range really showed significant growth. So as a team, we saw a need to focus on having all students reach a growth percentage of between 40 and 60% as a minimum. So us teachers are currently working with administration to improve those low scores. That's also my grade level team's goal for our new evaluation tool.
So Erin just spoke briefly on student growth. So again, I just shared with you the performance. So how many students fell in advanced, how many fell in the percentage of them that fell in proficient. However, all of those students, regardless of their performance level, need to make growth during the year. And that is a huge part of our accountability. And that is something that teachers, I shared in detail, in depth, sort of what that looks like in August. And that's something we speak to when we look at these internal assessments and what we talk about when we talk about expectations on the state assessment. So we are all aware of the new PARCC assessment and sort of the technology component that's involved with that. However, all their scores will be normed against the students that perform the same way in MCAS, so they will get growth data, and that is something that we will look at, and that is as Aaron spoke to, the goals for definitely our 4th grade team, but also our 5th grade team, and currently our 3rd grade team. So every teacher, every team has goals on performance growth for all students, and that is also the goals of myself and our curriculum coordinator, because we want to make sure that performance and numbers are looked at a little differently. We want to make sure that they understand that every single student, regardless of where they place, are making growth. And I put some growth data here to talk about the median growth for students that are in certain subgroups. I'm just going to read that to you. So the median student growth percentile for all students was 52% for the whole school, 34.5% for students with disabilities, and 55.5% for non-disabled students. So there's a proficiency gap that we need to address. Median student growth percentile for students in the high needs subgroup was 36%, and 58% for students in the non-high needs subgroup. And then we had to look at the open response, because the open response involves writing, but it also sort of shows where we really need to look at instruction, what we're doing to address some of the concerns that we had with the open responses. In 3rd grade, you can see that the average open response score was 2.43, but that's out of 3. So that's, compared to the other 2 grades I'm about to share with you, that's actually okay. We're looking at 1.94 out of 4 in 4th grade. That's an average out of 4. And that is a concern that goes with writing, but it also goes with sort of taking evidence from the text, which Aaron will speak to later, on how we address that in one of our team meetings with the 4th grade team. And we want to make sure that it's also clear that although 10 open response questions weren't answers, which means 10 students didn't actually get to the last open response, and it was the same open response they didn't get to, that's still a very low average considering, and we want to make sure that that does not happen again this year, because that has an overall impact on their scores. And then 2.39 out of 4 for the 5th grade. So a little bit better, but still very concerning, considering how much focus we're going to we placed on writing in the past. So this year's assessments are even more crucial. So I've spoken a lot about some of the internal assessments. I'm just going to list them for you. We have Fountas and Pinnell. We have their French GB+, Scholastic Reading Inventory. We have the Everyday Math Assessments. We have the I-Rated Common Core, and we have the Teacher Strategies Gold. These assessments are critical for the work that needs to be done here at Cunningham School. The Fountas and Pinnell reading assessments, for example, involves a teacher sitting one-on-one with the student and reading with the student and identifying not only sort of their reading level, but also taking data on next steps for the students so that they can make progress. This data, regardless if it's done by our reading support specialist, by the classroom teacher, is documented. So whether it's in words, whether it's by level, it's all documented on a spreadsheet that you see sort of similar to the one I presented there. And the students, from the moment they take it in September all the way to June, they're going to be their progress is going to be represented and reflected on this. I heard earlier Mrs. Gormley actually speak to some of the data meetings that we have at this Cunningham School. These are the data spreadsheets that we do share. We do color code them to make it easier visual, but we look specifically at the numbers and not just of students sort of undergrade, not at benchmark, but we also make sure that all students are making progress. And the big question is, if they are not making progress, what are we doing? What are we doing at the Cunningham School to address it?
So our data-driven process involves grade level teams and administrative teams meeting with a focus on data analysis, collaboration around instructional strategies that will solve and address problems in practice, assessing student growth and developing safety nets that are intentional to address specific content. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about what that looks like. For example, last week, the fourth grade writing teachers met with the curriculum coordinator, and we shared samples from this month's writing assessment and looked at all of those samples to discuss student progress towards our goal of having them effectively use evidence in response to text, which addresses those open responses. And based on the work, we decided that the next steps for us as a team would be to continue to model the use of evidence and create strategy groups to work on the students' specific needs. And we do that every month.
Just to clarify, yep, so they do the assessments, which is unique to fourth grade this year. So every month, they meet weekly. So the fourth grade team meets weekly with the curriculum coordinators, and sometimes myself, specifically to talk about next steps and data from writing, but also from from reading as well. So this is the curriculum coordinator for ELA and Math, Amy Gale. That meeting takes place weekly. The assessment takes place monthly. Just click. So there are next steps as a school. So we're going to build a data inventory that tracks the progress from kindergarten. That is already in existence. We're putting them all together on a spreadsheet that allows teachers to access it from anywhere and plug in the data as they give the assessments, but it also allows them to plug in observational data. So there's columns for teachers to take notes and make comments, and the goal is that as the students move up, all this data is going with them, and all this teachers will be informed prior, so that when they get their class list, all this data and information will already be at their disposal. So currently, grade levels can see all the data from the entire grade. Moving forward, we're going to really try to open it up so that teachers can see as students coming to them and students that have left them. But currently, as we're learning to sort of work with this bigger data inventory, we're doing it by grade level. We have protocols for measuring student progress. So the conversations now when we meet with teachers is if it was effective, how did it play out in the classroom? If we're saying that something went well, show us evidence of that. Identifying and determining problems of practice and evidence of effective practice is rooted in data. So when I mention problems of practice, I'm not saying necessarily bad instruction, but not effective instruction. And that's based on if a student hasn't learned the content at the end of a unit, we look at how that unit was taught. We look at different ways we could teach that unit, or if you look at it a different way, if a class did particularly well, so I'm thinking of a class that just averaged 95 on a math unit, and I want to know how did that teacher teach that unit? What practices can I share with the rest of the teachers? Because obviously the performance in this class was very high, and I would want that across the board in all the classrooms. Action plans for students assessing the effectiveness of the impact of the differentiated strategies. This is something we put in place last year where students that are not making progress, we have individualized action plans for them. And a lot of them involve participating in safety net programs that we'll speak to later. But some of it, as you heard Mrs. Abbott speak to, involves some of the structural things we can do with the schedule so that we could do some strategy groups within the classroom with the current staff that we have during the school day, which is also very important to make sure that we're meeting students where they are, and helping them make progress.
Can I do this without the microphone, or should I lean in? Initiatives funded by advancement include extended day support groups, increased knowledge of Common Core state standards, purchase of Common Core aligned curriculum materials, such as Calkins Units of Study for Readers and Writers Workshop, professional development focused on unpacking standards, increased time on task in all classrooms, grade level facilitators, supported analysis of math data to inform instruction utilizing specific data-driven protocols, opportunity to develop teacher leaders, targeted literacy support, Saturdays professional development sessions to develop familiarity with new literacy materials, reading specialist, early literacy consultant to work with grades 1 through 3, Science curriculum materials, FOSS, which are the hands-on science kits, Creative Computing Program, English Innovation Pathway, and Professional Development.
And before we move on, I just want to speak to, again, all these advancements initiatives are great in the extended day. The first one I put up there is something that we're looking at in the same way we would look at things in the classroom. So all the students that participate in the extended day took an assessment when they started, and we're making sure that all the lessons that they are experiencing with their most of the time their classroom teacher, but at times with other teachers in the building, all the lessons are very intentional. So we have a completely different curriculum that we're using for extended day that, again, was intentional based on the pre-assessment that they took, whether it was in math or ELA. And they're going to take another assessment when extended day is over, and we're going to see if did they make progress, and if they did, we're going to make sure we share those practices and make sure that we use that as evidence that this different approach, so that again, they're covering the same content that they would be covering in the classroom, but this different approach may be deemed effective and maybe a way that teachers can differentiate in the classroom. So all this, so this extended day program is so essential because it's another source of data and evidence for us.
Okay, so next we're going to outline the data-driven goal-setting focus areas, the full implementation of the new science curriculum with the addition of the new common unit assessments, and the advancement initiative is Advancing Science and STEM, and we thank you for supporting these advancements. Increase and/or modify targeted support for students, especially students in high needs group. Advancement initiative was closing the proficiency gap. Enhance the structure for ongoing assessment. Advancement initiative, closing the proficiency gap. Increasing achievement in all areas with special attention to students in the low-income subgroup. Advancement initiative, closing the proficiency gap. And move students into advanced categories in ELA, math, and science. Advancement initiatives, advancing science and STEM, and closing the proficiency gap. And again, we appreciate your support of these advancements.
So this involves more than just performance data. One thing that I do is keep a spreadsheet that I share with my team, Principal Redden and the curriculum coordinator. And some columns on that spreadsheet to give you an idea of what that looks like. In addition to performance data, as previous performance data from state testing, high needs, whether they participate in some of the safety nets mentioned. And we use that data to really focus on developing action plans and next steps for the students to improve their growth.
Which brings us right to our first school improvement goal, which I have addressed. Cunningham staff will work to increase proficiency in ELA with an increased focus on writing for grade 4 students by implementing monthly assessments and meeting weekly as a team. Again, this is unique to 4th grade, really addressing the performance scores and the growth data from the previous MCAS, but also knowing that there's a concern for how writing is how students are performing in writing, and there's a concern about how writing is being taught. We want to make sure we're doing intentional things in the classrooms, and some of the strategies we have are fully implemented integrated ELA curriculum aligned to current standards. So this is, again, a different curriculum that we're using in conjunction with the Calkins thing that all of the grade levels are doing from 3, 4, and 5 to really help put that extra emphasis on writing. And again, we're measuring that based on the monthly assessments that they're doing and making sure that students are making progress. Provide continuous supports to grade 4 ELA teachers. Implement the common writing assessments and increase the presence of technology. So again, that also addresses that the way students are going to be held accountable or need to show their writing is going to be typing this year on the PARCC assessment. So we want to make sure that with the support of the MFE, with the support of the, from the budget, from the school budget, and from our generous PTO parents, we were able to get additional Chromebooks this year, and the 4th grades and 5th grades at any given time of the day are almost one-to-one with Chromebooks so that they can use them in their lessons. They don't have to look for them. And I think that's very important as we teach students to transfer their knowledge and skills and not sort of lose anything when they start typing their thoughts. Our second literacy goal is to provide appropriate targeted interventions and instructional practices early and often to increase reading proficiency in all grades. We work towards every student reading proficiently by grade 3. Fully implement Reader's Workshop. Provide intervention groups throughout the day. Provide appropriate literacy materials for a range of learners and increase technology as a resource for reading materials. I think the biggest improvement, so Reader's Workshop, as you know, is the second year working, training teachers in Reader's Workshop. I think the big thing for Reader's Workshop to work is to make sure students have access to books at their level, and increases the ability for them to take a mini lesson, learn a specific skill, and be able to apply it to a book at their level. So by having funds and donations and the PTO support our new book room that is almost complete, but they were able to also use the funds made from the Scholastic Book Fair and put it all towards the completion of the book room. So we look forward to working with our curriculum coordinator and our reading specialist to get that done in the near future and sort of increase the number of books in the classroom libraries, because that's where the students have the direct access to the books at their level in different genres, and will feel comfortable applying some of the skills that they learn in the mini lesson to their grade level appropriate books, while the teachers can work on pushing them with books that may be just a little bit above their level in small guided reading groups. Our goal 3, support and develop the whole child. Working with staff and parents and students, Cunningham will work to provide instruction, interventions, and programming to support academic, social, and emotional growth and understanding of differences. This is a very important goal that encompasses so much, and it's meant to be that way. I'm going to have parents speak to this after I read the strategies and just the different things that we do at Cunningham to strengthen this goal and also sustain some of the things that you could see that were shared with the other elementary schools, but we have some programs that we're going to share tonight that are unique to Cunningham that we're very proud of, that are really making a difference. That involves the work with parents, that involves the work with teachers, and I really think that after hearing the presentation from the parents, you'll see how much of an impact it's already have this year. Teachers will collaborate and share resources electronically so that support staff are better prepared to support students in the classroom. I shared last year that we're piloting the online plan book. Well, this year, instead of having teachers share a plan book, they each have their own plan book, which I believe has sort of take a little more of that anxiety off, because now they know that that's their plan book and they can share the pieces of it that they think will be most beneficial for the either support staff or for myself to know and make sure that their schedule's up to date. And it's another sort of piece of evidence so that I can sort of make sure that they're, or so that everyone can make sure that they're covering sort of the specific content areas as like writing for 4th grade and using the materials that were shared in team meetings and in groups. Staff will work to include all students and families in school communications and events. Most staff do this individually, but some staff are teaming up to write more newsletters home to parents and share communications, because with this extra work and this collaborative work with teams, you'll notice that a lot of the teachers are pretty much following the same, teaching the same content at the same time, which is very good when you're talking about working together collaboratively, making sure that we're actually covering the same content at the same time. A teacher's not on lesson 1, where another teacher's on lesson 8, and these newsletters are really helping control the pace. In order to continue to build strong school relationships, the Cunningham will extend the day for interested students. That speaks specifically to our Saturday Scholars program, which I think is pretty much almost the highlight this year, because we did extend day last year. We weren't able to do Saturday Scholars last year, but this year with joining with Collie Cott School, we were able to bring that back, and we have good enrollment. We have opportunities for them to continue to do art and to continue to work in the gym, but also we remove that whole test prep piece of it and really focused on doing some enriching activities in the classroom that students are doing fun activities in the classroom while learning ELA and math. And that was the emphasis that we worked on with the teachers, and we looked at a completely different curriculum that catered to that, and I think it's working out really well. And even though there's only a few more Saturdays left, we still have people that want to sign up, which just goes to show the word's getting out there and that people are really interested in coming on a Saturday. And strengthen work with the diversity and cultural committees, PTO, and the site council.
So I have kind of I have kind of a fun thing to share with you. Obviously, we know a lot of the schools have similar programs and similar things that they do, but we wanted to share one thing that Cunningham is doing, that a new program we have. The program is called RAD, Reading About Diversity. And it was developed by 2 parents last summer, and it runs in grades 1 through 4. It's 5 books per grade level. And it's run similar to Meet the Artist. Parents come in just like they do for Meet the Artist. They sign up and they sometimes work with us as a team, or single parents come in and do the program. The basic goal of the program is to promote a discussion, an ongoing discussion in the classroom about diversity, but really all kinds of diversity. Sometimes we think of just racial diversity. These parents decided to focus on race, religion, physical abilities, intellectual capabilities, gender, the list goes on and on. It's really a diverse program about diversity. We all know kids love books, they love being read to, so we start with an interesting story, the kids gather on the story rug usually, the parent reads the books, and it morphs right into a great conversation. It's parent-led, but definitely a kid-powered conversation about the topic at hand. We've had some really thoughtful discussions that have led to interesting conversations about differently abled family members, friends and family who don't look like them or attend a different church than their family does, neighbors who eat different food than they do, grandparents who've come to the U.S. from all over the world. I mean, really, the list goes on. Following the classroom discussion, the kids go back to their desks and in small groups or on their own usually work on a writing piece of it, where they may draw pictures. We have skin color crayons, so they may draw pictures of what we've just discussed. In grades 2, 3, and 4, some more writing is involved. And then we all gather back, and anybody who wants to share what they wrote about or drew about shares with the class, and the class sort of reacts to that. So it's really been, the lessons sort of embrace diversity and celebrate diversity, but a broadly defined diversity, while further building community in the classroom and having parent volunteers and on a more regular basis. So it's been very successful at Cunningham. The 2 parents who did it are Jen Manak and Tanya Frank McKnight. And we really want to thank the PTO funded RAD for them. But since then, the Milton Cultural Council has come through with a grant that has pretty much funded it, refunded the PTO. So Milton Cultural Council gets a big thank you. They paid for it, which is excellent. So I'll share that with you guys.
Beautiful book.
We'll collect the books at the end, but we want you guys to keep the, yeah, I know. We don't have that much money from the MCC. We want you guys to keep the curriculum sheet. Just take a look. It's interesting, the discussions. And it's, again, finishing its first year, and these parents have generously offered to share it with the other 3 elementary schools after they tweak it a little bit and share it this summer, so that if they want to and can fund it, they can offer it in their own schools. So.
Trying to steal the book.
I
caught her.
Just going to borrow it for a little bit.
And I'm just going to pick up on another really interesting thing that's happening. Tucker has done the community garden, but we're finally doing it this year. And I want to say that gardening is learning by doing, and it doesn't get any more hands-on than growing something. And nothing more science-based. It's a win-win with parent volunteers. It's all volunteer. And Bernadette Noonan's support and the PTO and the MFE, we're taking advantage of what's right in our front yard, which is that fenced-in area to the right of the school as you come out. And we're really excited about this. Will be our first year we're doing it with first graders. And it would be enough that gardening has just increases self-confidence, it teaches cause and effect, cooperation, creates a love of nature and healthy eating, it gets them moving, which we need. And it's proven to have a positive effect on social and interpersonal skills and self-esteem. And I think of it as creativity in action. And all of that would be enough. But it makes kids enjoy learning. So studies actually show that school gardens help motivate students to study science, and it boosts their scores on science achievement tests. So it's kind of a win-win there. And also, kids with learning disabilities do really well with it. It increases nonverbal communication skills. This stuff's been studied as well. They learn how to take advantage of making order, cooperative effort, and positive bonding relationships with peers as well as with adults, because we're bringing in moms and dads, and a lot of this is going to be, we have some money, but we're also going to really try and recruit some volunteers. And then it brings pride and accomplishment and connection to the school, of course. And it supports the whole child. And I think with the, cuts in arts and music and that kind of stuff, this year is a really good way, just like Meet the Artist and RAD, volunteer parents coming in and organizing how to sort of make some of those other ends meet. So I'm excited about it.
Thank you. And our fourth school improvement goal, the Cunningham will work to increase proficiency in science by implementing new science curriculum units, implementing integrated science curriculum aligned to current standards, provide professional development in science curriculum implementation and effective practice, as Aaron spoke to earlier, develop common science assessments and writing prompts for notebooks, increase the presence of technology at all grade levels in French and English, implement the creative computing program in grade 3, which started this year.
Do you want to come here?
So this year's fifth graders are last year's fourth graders. So I want to talk to them about them in a different way. We've just heard a lot about their data. I want to talk about inspiration and intelligence in the classroom. I spent a lot of time in the classroom recently. I'm a parent of Barron, who's going to speak next. And I also teach painting at Boston University and been there for 15 years. So for me, I feel like I wear two hats when I go into the classroom. And right now, a third hat that I have on, I'm working with the fifth grade students to create a large collaborative art project. They're going to be making 3 banners that will be going in the front of the Cunningham School on the wall of the gym as part of the beautification project that's supported by the PTO and started by the PTO. It's a really wonderful way for the students to have pride in their school, but specifically the banner project allows them to work with multiple kinds of intelligence. They're not only going to be making the pieces of the banner in their art class, so they each work individually and make these pieces in a multi-step process. It's going to take them about a month to do this, so they have to follow it through from start to finish, but they also be working collaboratively. We've already had group discussions. We've really just started because of all the snow. So we've already had these group discussions together. We take their work, we lay it out, and I say to them, what do you notice? And Mrs. Lathwell says to them, what do you notice? And for me, making art is like science. It's a process of noticing the world, especially for children, because they learn through kinesthetic and tactile experience. And we all can think back to our memories of lessons that we learn specifically through material and through what we saw. And so for me, it's such an honor to be working with the students in the classroom. We're working both in the art classroom. There are parent volunteers. Laura Kanata has been quite important to this project. She led a responsive kind of questionnaire for the students, what Cunningham means to me. So they really started by looking back at 6 years at this school and really thinking about what was so important to them, first of all. And Jessica Galuli, who's teaching art at Milton Schools, and myself and Laura are all also working with them in the classroom. The theme of the banners, they're going to have to make them for us to see them. So what I've put here is just a little kind of idea that I've shared with them about open books and open minds. So thinking about what they're learning through literacy and through the books that they've shared for many years as opening their minds into inspiration, into lifelong learning. So I have some images from the classrooms of the different quotes. I love the texture of the 5th grade classrooms. There are 4 classrooms. All of them have wonderful quotes. Mrs. Hyde is doing a kindness blog where the students are blogging to each other and sharing kind acts that they do, so that their writing also involves their life and what's important to them. I almost cried reading it. It's so inspiring. In Mr. Coben's class, they were doing poetry and memorizing poetry, and so at home, Baron will be embarrassed. He'll be walking around saying a William Blake poem. And, you know, kind of thinking, I can't make this up. It's so wonderful. They share current events in Mrs. D'Entremont's class, and just today at the bowling party for the 5th graders, I asked some students, Mr. Smith's class, what are you working on specifically right now? And they love doing creative writing where they get a sentence to start, and then they finish the sentence with their creative writing. So there's so much writing going on, but in all different ways. And I want the banner to reflect that, to reflect what's going on in the classroom. I don't see art making as, I see it as special, but I don't see it as separate from learning that happens in the classroom. So the students will be using geometric shapes that they use to make a Polygon Town project, and they will be cutting out silhouettes of favorite book characters or imagery from poems that they read and placing those over the silhouettes of the books. So there's a sense of kind of a culminating project for the 5th graders before they go to Pierce Middle School, and they're such a joy to work with. I get so much from going in and just hearing what they have to say and seeing what they have to do. So it's been a good 6 years.
Thank you. So we definitely wanted to share those highlights from the parents. And although the teachers and I are definitely focused on making sure all students are making academic progress, the parents and the teachers bring this rich experience, this full Cunningham experience that we wanted to share with you today. And we want to end the night with you hearing specifically from students on what that experience has meant to them before they go off to Pierce Middle School. So if I can have Anna Hamlet and Baron Clancy come up.
They didn't plan their outfits. That's the best part. They just arrived in the same outfit. You did? Oh.
Did, see?
Because
They were blogging about it.
they were blogging. They have a wonderful Google Doc with the free leadership.
See, they did that. That's what they did. So, he's cute looking.
Cunningham means a lot to me. It's where my first 6 years of school happened. I don't remember much before kindergarten, so Cunningham is where I spent the first 6 years of my life. I made my first friends and learned to read and write and almost everything else I know about academics. I have liked almost every day of school here. I can remember a lot of my time there, from playing house in kindergarten to writing the long comp in 4th grade. My years at Cunningham have each been different. In my 6 years, I've had 3 different principals. The only thing that I remember about Miss Gerber is making a card for her birthday in kindergarten. I got to color in the shoes. Dr. Spalding really got us interested in science, and I remember in 3rd grade, to welcome Mr. Redden, we all signed a basketball. One of my favorite subjects is math. I've done Math League, a program on Friday mornings, since 2nd grade. It has really helped me in continental math and word problems in general. This year we've changed the curriculum a bit and we're doing math Olympiad problems. A week ago, when I had finished my work early, Mr. Coleman said that I could work out of one of the Olympiad books. I was really happy. One of my fondest memories is from 3rd grade. We were doing a class play and the 4 main parts were picked out of a hat. Everyone else, including me, was chorus. I was a bit sad that I didn't have a main part, but it was okay. However, I was really glad when we performed the play in music class and the teacher said that since I had some acting experience, I could direct it and make sure that everyone was doing the right thing. These are some of the opportunities that I've had at Cunningham. My name is Baron Clancy and I also go to the Cunningham School. One highlight from Cunningham, especially in the 5th, well, only in the 5th grade, is how that they introduced the new FOSS kits. I love the FOSS science kits because they're really hands-on, and they're also really fun. Also, I feel there are so much topics covered, and it's really organized, and it's organized really well. So I feel I can learn science really well, which is my favorite subject. Also, a fun part that they included is that they include in the living systems unit that we're doing. When we were learning about the Earth system, they included this food web game where you got a deck of cards with your team, with the team that you're in, and then you got to create a food web with the deck of cards. I felt that had a good collaboration experience and also taught you about science. I also found that watching a movie during the Earth Systems unit and then answering questions was fun. It taught me so much about, I don't know, the Earth science. And then, finally, when we did our recycling, when we learned about recycling, we got worms and we got to create a habitat for them. And we get to check them, I don't know, about once a week, and I find it's pretty fun. Yep, so that's really about the FOSS kits, and that's what I like about them, the FOSS science kits.
Choke on his own. I just want to say, I did not tell him that this is what I want to write about, so.
Thank you, Baron and Anna. They are a part of our fifth grade leadership team, and I'm happy to say that they're always willing to do anything for the Cunningham School, and they also were very instrumental in our bullying assembly, where they scripted in the videos of a bullying situation that could take place in school. We were able to play it for the entire school and sort of speak on the next appropriate steps and actions that should have happened after. And I think Baron did cyberbullying, which was very unique and another conversation that we were able to go in with the entire school body present. So it was great for them to work on that and bring the bullying assembly into a different direction. So that is our Cunningham School Site Council presentation, and thank you.
Ms. Bagley-Jones?
If I can just quickly say, I have one quick question and 3 comments. The extended day program, is there any cost to that?
The extended day program, there is no cost. That is from advancement, and we as a result, we do ask that the teachers identify the students that are invited, and we do use the data to not just MCAS data, but we also use performance data during the school year. Okay. So like a mass notice doesn't go out and it's not a sign up, whereas Saturday Scholars is, so there is a fee for Saturday Scholars, and we do send that out to everyone and hope that not only will the students that are in extended day or that have been identified for extended day, other students go to sort of make rich groups.
Thank you. And then just 3 quick comments. I love the integration of the French and English program in the specials, and is that a new thing? And I'm really glad to hear that it's happening. It's been talked about for a number of years, so thank you. And the slideshow, no offense, I thought was the best part, other than these 2 young people, because it showed the whole child. And the data is really important and really good, you know, but the kids, seeing the kids and what they do and what the teachers do. And then the last point was with the 2 students that were highlighted on the written part, you'll notice that the academic achievement is there, but so is the art achievement and the music achievement. Just want to get that in there. So thank you for those things. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ms. Padera?
I just always love hearing about the Cunningham. There's always something exciting happening there. And this was, I have to say, beyond what you've done before, really amazing things. And I have so much to say, but I'll make it as brief as I can. First of all, this song was, Stephanie and I always have the same song. Like, I do the same song for the Iron Chef Jr. I was like, that's my song. I hate it. The French and English mixing, I would just say that if we could look at that for the other schools as well, because I know there's a big push for that, and a lot of the kids would really love it, really, to see their friends a little bit more that are in the different programs. But what I really want to highlight is that I feel like you guys are just doing such a great job at not just doing, okay, we need to do better in science and just more science, but looking at different ways creatively at enhancing the program and thinking creatively about getting kids inspired about the program and science. And I think also you really did such a great job of talking about there might be not an art section on the MCAS or PARC. There's no music section, but that doesn't mean that those don't enhance how kids do on those tests and how they do in school in general. It's really about kids being inspired and coming to school every day, and what, we don't talk to them enough about what makes you excited about coming to school. What part of the day do you enjoy the most, and how does that help them do better in everything? And so I think that, we talked at the beginning of this meeting a lot about those programs seem to be unprotected, and they should be protected because they're just as important to students' learning. And your presentation really highlighted that. Of all facets of education, those are important just as much as anything else, because it's all about students learning and their enhancement of that. If kids are excited in one class, it generally bridges to the next. So I want to thank you for that, because I think it really really tied into that part of the presentation earlier.
Thank you.
Sheridan?
Sure. Thank you so much. That was just awesome. And I could talk for hours about it. I feel like I need to go and debrief with Jonathan about this whole thing because it was so exciting. But thank you to all of you, because you all clearly have a role to play in the success of the school, and that's a very powerful thing. I won't reiterate what these guys have already said, but I just have a couple of questions. And one is, you mentioned in one of the slides about an integrated ELA curriculum. Is that outside of the Readers Writers Workshop, or what exactly is that?
So I think you're speaking specifically to what the fourth grade team. They do the Calkins units of study that the third, fourth, and fifth grades do. We added a separate piece specifically, not because we feel the Calkins unit is not sufficient at writing, but we wanted to really add more intentional writing lessons and instruction time dedicated to writing for the fourth grade because of our performance data on the MCAS, and because we don't want to see that type of result again in the upcoming PARC assessments. And I think it's you can't put another thing on the teacher without providing support, which is why the weekly support is also very important. We have Mrs. Gale, who's great at working with the teachers and sort of having them look at the data, but also look at the instruction and sort of thinking about different ways and different ways to sort of make sure students are accessing the content that we want them to be able to represent in writing. So it's a level of support that's additional for the fourth grade, but also, yes, there's a little extra piece of the curriculum that is not done in third or fifth grade.
It's not a separate curriculum program. So that integration that you're talking about is so critical, and having the weekly team meetings and the support from the outside people and building the capacity of your teachers is just, it's all good news. So you kind of led into my next point, and that was your focus is very much on writing based on your data, obviously, as you said, which, I mean, your data was wonderful, so that it wasn't terrible, but you identified the need. So you're focusing a lot on the writing part, but we know that the PARC assessment assesses writing in a very different way than MCAS does. So can you just talk a little bit about that transition to the writing? I don't want you to take a lot of time because I know that could be a thesis paper, but.
So again, when we discussing, again, I want to give credit to the fourth grade team that has agreed to give up their time to meet, because we don't have the common planning time. These are teachers that agreed to give up their time to meet with us every week. So I commend them for that. And when we planned it, we were focusing on sort of students not being able to, like Erin said, take evidence from the text and put it in writing, or sort of write a beginning, middle, and end, and sort of do those basic things that you need to do in writing to get, regardless if you're typing it or if you're writing it, to get credit. I think that with the typing, we all hear, how many words a minute they need to be able to write, and how that can take away from what's actually put down on paper. So I think that's why I included in that improvement goal the Chromebook piece, because you can't say, okay, on computer lab, when we have time to go to the computer lab, then we can practice that. They need to be able to practice and embed that in everything they do, whether they're writing science journal notebooks, whether they're doing some open response writing in math. We need to make sure that they have access to a Chromebook so that they can continue practicing those typing skills, because that's when they're going to learn how to type. We also have, or we're very close to putting them on all the Chromebooks, but we are looking at the Google typing programs that we haven't identified a time in the day where we can do that, because it's very packed. But we're trying to see if we can either lend them out so that they can go home and sort of practice it, sort of like they do with Study Island, because they do have to be on the Cunningham Google account to get it. But I think that it's definitely important, because if they aren't able to write as much because do the typing, they're not really being, there's not really a clear measure of what they're actually capable of doing. So we do really intentional about making sure they have to have that time to really practice and feel comfortable.
And I just want to close by saying I love RAD. I love it. I might even borrow it. No. It's awesome. Thank you. Thank you to all of you.
Mr. Zulus?
So thank you as well. I too was impressed with the music in the presentation and jealous of your ability to integrate into your presentation. In each of your goals, you talked about technology, increasing in each of the 4 goals, and I was wondering if there's a resource component of that. Do you have what you need? Are you looking for more? Is there a resource or funding component to the technology part in particular?
I think the recent purchases by the MFE, and I think the initial purchase by the district this year has really put us in a really good place, not only for Park, but just to make sure that, because again, we don't always want to walk in the classroom and students are glued to a computer screen either. We want to make sure that when it's needed and when it's best for the lesson that's being taught, the students have access to it. And I think now I was able to put a lot more Chromebooks in the upper grades, which allowed me to put a lot more iPads in the lower grades, a lot more Kindles in the lower grades, which I think has created a nice balance in the Cunningham school that, so when we're doing station work and workshop type things, there's always a group or a station where students are actually working with technology and having that experience. And teachers, as a result, are also getting more comfortable. I have teachers from both strands actually participating in the Google trainings that are currently taking place, which is a really big step, because a lot of the apps and the things aren't translated necessarily in French. So you have to really think creatively about how that's going to help you in what you're doing in the classroom and not take away from the immersion piece of it. And I think the teachers are really being intentional and really thinking thoughtfully about how to make that work. So I was very encouraged, and I see that happening on both sides. And so it doesn't make a difference what strand you're in, the access to technology is there.
May I, before your next question, if you don't mind? I'd like to recognize at this time Jonathan Redden. From the day Jonathan Redden joined the Milton Public Schools, in a very professional and mild way, he has been our technology leader. And so he might have let others think that they were in charge of technology, making the decisions, heading up the committees. But I want to recognize Jonathan, and Jonathan, you do it in such a mild but strong way. He drove his school and then presented to the whole district an electronic plan book. His teachers across grade levels, the SPED teachers, share the information. He shared with his peers across the district. Google is, I think, his middle name, is it? Is it? He and Ms. Sheehan have something going about Google. And so I want to recognize you. You are a leader on the leadership. You are the leader on the leadership team. And the way that you set the standard and drive people and expect it, and the ultimate gainers of your technology drive and love of technology are the students in the Milton Public Schools, all of the schools, but especially the Cunningham. So thank you.
Thank you.
So your question was very appropriate.
Oh, well, thank you.
And if I might, and I promise this isn't my presentation, but Jonathan it could come up here and sit with us. I want to recognize Leroy Walker and the Capital Committee and the town, and Mr. Walker represents us and lobbies for the schools at the capital level. So without the capital expenditure, the MFE expenditure, the Milton Public School expenditure, and the Copeland expenditure, we would not be able to go into park this year. And it is the right decision. We work with the Milton Public School parent, who's a leader in the state in park, and Dr. Laura O'Dwyer. She said park is here to stay. There's no MCAS 2 being planned, so our children would have been left behind and would have been 1 year behind. So our teachers and students, you would be proud of the work that's being done in the schools and the level of anticipation and their willingness. Again, you talk about resiliency and risk takers. They're ready to take the park, but without that initiative of technology, I sit with superintendents from across the state, and their towns, communities, and school committees have left them unprepared. And so to the Milton Public Schools and the town of Milton, they should be proud that our schools are prepared for this next level of testing. Thank you. You did the leading question.
You're sure? Just one other comment. On Frank's gardening initiative, there are a couple of parents in town, parents of Pierce students, Jerry and Janet Lorden, who have created the STEM Garden Institute, which is a whole curriculum based on agriculture and its effect on science, technology, engineering, and math. So just a thought, you might check, it's STEM Garden Institute, and you might get some ideas. And
That's at Pierce?
No, they've developed a whole curriculum that they're putting in certain... Nationally, they're putting in schools nationally.
Are they doing it here, though?
I think we have some
Yes.
pilots. I think we
Yes.
have some pilots.
If you don't mind.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like a Blue Hills grant.
So the Lordens work really across the country, and they are at the Tucker. They did an after-school, you might remember at the elementary level, it was an option for all families to go to the Tucker because their children went to the Tucker. Now they're at the PS school. And so we have one of their hydroponic
Yeah.
gardens in our office, but I will tie you up with them tomorrow, and in the off-season, when you're not gardening, you can take the one out of our office and have it at the Cunningham.
Will we
Okay,
ever
this
garden?
spring's going to be rough.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, Janet Lorden volunteers, and she'll do the sessions in the school. She'll set up, and she periodically comes to our
Great,
office to check our progress.
great, thank you.
Ms. Kelly?
Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation, and it really gave anybody who watched the entire thing an amazing example or a feeling as to what goes on day in and day out at the Cunningham School. And it just brought back such memories, because my 3 guys went through that school, and it just is amazing every time you guys come and present, what happens day in and day out. So congratulations. And it can only happen with the dedication of the teachers that you have, the leadership, and the parents. And, without all those parent volunteers coming in on their, lunchtime or whatever to help out in the classroom, those kinds of experiences wouldn't be possible. So thank you very much. 2 just quick questions. One is, I love the amount of data that you are collecting and the color coding. I do that in my business, so I think it's fabulous. But how hard is it to maintain? How are you doing with that? Is it something that there's a program out there that can assist, or, what kinds of things are you looking at around that?
So I think the approach that we took was to help teachers to become comfortable with spreadsheets in Google. And the reason why is because they're used to submitting Excel sheets and emailing them back to myself and to the coordinator, and then the coordinator would have to take those Excel sheets from the different grade levels and put them all together on the document, and it was just multiple steps. And I'm, by the way, encouraged that we have a data specialist now that might even find a simpler way to do it. I'm not saying Google's the perfect way, but Google allows it to be more of a live process. So when Erin enters her data, it goes into a spreadsheet that everyone has access to. So it's like live way to sort of keep track of all the different spreadsheets. And so now we only need 6 of them for the grade levels, as opposed to each a class having their own Excel sheet. So it's made it easier. It's also more important to make sure teachers are comfortable, because they can also go in and delete something by accident because they didn't really know how to sort of put something in. So we started by sort of sitting down and doing it for them, and now as they've become more comfortable, they're able to do it on their own.
And then one more question. On the extended day, are there obstacles to having as many children as you would like joining those programs? And what are they? And do some of those students are they also participating in the Saturday Scholars Program?
So to your first question, we addressed, so the biggest obstacles are, can they come in the morning as opposed to in the afternoon? And because I want to the best extent possible, have the classroom teacher be the teacher of the extended day program. If the teacher's schedules lend more to the morning and the students can't get there that early in the morning, or the parent has 2 students and doesn't want to make 2 trips, and that all of those are valid reasons, we have to look for another way to provide that opportunity. So we have teachers, we have Nicole Young, who wasn't able to join us today. We have our 2 LEAP teachers also filling in and providing extra times where students can still in the same grade level and still in the same class sometimes, but have extended day learning opportunities in ELA or math. So it's not together, it's separate. So it's either ELA session or a math session. And in that situation, they won't be with their classroom teacher, but they'll be with a very skilled teacher that's using the same curriculum that the rest of the extended day learning teachers are using. And they can quickly, because the groups have been kept very small this year, they can very quickly get that rapport with the students and really get them excited about coming and learning. So, I mean, I've also sort of stepped in to make sure we had enough groups for our 5th grade students, because again, we're looking at growth from 4th grade now because of our data. So I definitely have really wanted to make sure every single 4th grader that was able to come could come. And as a result, I wanted to make sure that I've provided some extra days, even if it's a Friday afternoon, which it is in this situation, because it's very important that we address the first school improvement goal, which is improving the scores of those students from last year.
Great.
And then to Mrs. Kelly's second part of that question, some of those students on Saturday mornings, was that your second part, Ms. Kelly?
The Saturday morning program, so at first, so the initial wave of Saturday morning programs involved, I think, 3 of the students from extended day. And then we were able to